1 minute. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you all to today's August 20th, 2019 board meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order and begin by asking you to get cards from the back. If you wish to speak, fill them out, hand them in to Kathy Tompkins, and then at the appropriate time, I'll call you up to speak. Please stand and welcome the flag salute under the direction of Sarasota High School and Sergeant First Class Pulpus. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arms. Colors. March. Colors. Halt. Right face. Forward. March. Colors. Halt. Right face. Pose. The colors. Present. Arms. Order. Arms. Left face. Forward. March.
Thank you. I want to introduce our first time we've had a student assistant in some months since we've all been on summer break. I'd like to introduce everyone to Carolina Titus. She's a Sarasota High School student. And Carolina, could you please give us a little update on what you're doing and what you plan to do in the future? We gave you a certificate of appreciation, and we so thank you for being here today.
Thank you. My name's Carolina Titus, and I go to Sarasota High School. I'm a senior, and I'm part of the ACE program at Sarasota High School, and I'm also part of the MAST program, which is our independent research program that we have for science. And I also run cross-country and track in school, and looking into colleges and starting to apply and all that fun stuff. And my top 3 schools I would say right now are Duke, Vanderbilt, and Georgetown. And in-state, I also would love to apply to UF and FSU.
Oh, I balanced out that.
You've made everybody happy today. Well, welcome and thank you for being here on this rainy day. And next up, we have the superintendent's report. Dr. Bowden.
So as we sit here today, we are day 7 of the school year. It's our second week of operation. We had an opportunity to brag on Jody this morning, so I'm going to take it easy on him this afternoon. But I tell you, we have a new director of transportation, a new director of food service. Jody is filling multiple roles, and so the opening of school is always an exciting and trying time. But as I visited schools throughout the district last week, you would have thought that we'd been up and running for weeks. It's incredible how quickly we fall back into routines. Students were where they needed to be. I intentionally visited every high school in the district on the first day of school. They are really a good gauge in regards to how opening is going. Master schedules at high schools can be difficult sometimes. If your schools aren't well run, you find lines outside of guidance with kids missing classes throughout the day. But that's not what I found when I visited our schools the first day, our high schools specifically. Students were in class, engaged in academic activities on the first day. So I know we have one of our high school principals here. Kudos to all of our principals, our teachers, and Jody specifically. I would ask him daily throughout the summer, are the buses going to run, and are we going to have hot breakfast on Monday morning? And sure enough, the buses ran. And we had hot breakfast. Kids were where they needed to be, doing what they were supposed to do. So thank you for stepping up and filling that chief operations role. Talk about passing a major test. Thank you, sir. As we look at enrollment numbers, as we go through the first week, we do counts throughout the week, and then we attempt to project enrollment into October. We've projected about a 270 student increase in enrollment above our projections, which caused us to put about 10 new teacher units out in the field. So right now we're going through a process of identifying teachers. We do have some schools that are losing units while other schools gain. So there will be some movement with our hope that all teachers are in their new locations Monday morning. We believe it's important for those teachers to be where they're supposed to be, working with their students. The longer they're in their current locations, the more parents and families become attached. They fall in love. And so it becomes difficult when you try to disperse classes and combine classes. And even when you gain units, it can be difficult because you go in and say, all right, this class is overcrowded. We need to move 5 students to the classroom next door, and they've all fallen in love with their teacher. And so we're going through that process and hope to be settled out on Monday and hope to have another great school year. That concludes the superintendent's report.
Well, I would just say kudos to facilities and to the building construction department and to a lot of our operations department. I think Jody Dumas has done an exceptional job, and he's very shy when it comes to accepting any thanks. But I want to say again, Jody, thank you very, very much for all you have done this summer, and you have stepped up to the plate and have done an exceptional job, and we're so lucky to have you. Thank you. And next we have our hearing of citizens. Please note that, and respect for divergent viewpoints and civility, and that should be shown at every board meeting. Please make no discussion or talks from the audience while we're going through this process. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. When the time flashes yellow, 1 minute remains, and please summarize so that you will stop speaking exactly as close to 3 minutes as possible. The first person is Jackie Simmons. I'm sorry, right over to where the display is there.
Okay.
And what? And the light is in front of the Kathy Tompkins sign, and it will be green when you start, and it will be yellow at the last minute.
Thank you. I'm Jackie Simmons, and I'm here because Florida is excelling in an area we don't want to excel in. We are 17th in the nation in suicide completions, death by suicide. Locally, Sarasota County is 50% higher than Manatee County for young adult teen suicides. A group of us got together and created a project called the Make It a Great Day. The choice is yours. We've completed a book that will be in print next month. We have a program that is a buy a book, give a book program. So every person who purchases a book on Amazon, a book will be given for free to a teen in Sarasota County. The goal is to help them understand that there are ways to work through emotional upset, that they don't have to stay stuck in a place where they've sold themselves on having no hope. And so this is a project that's near and dear to a bunch of our hearts. I raised 3 daughters. 2 of them struggled with suicide ideation for their entire lives. They're both still alive. I'm really grateful. I don't think any other parent should have to go through that. So we're looking for ways to get this message out. What I want to know is who in the county can I partner with to help get the books in the hands of teens for free. That's the purpose of the program, is so the kids have something they can carry around with them, so they get the message that there are tools, there are techniques, there are organizations, there's help, and there's other people's stories. It's the stories that will touch them. It's the stories of the kids who completed suicide and the impact that had on their friends. It's the stories of those that didn't, and my daughter's story is in the book. So, again, I'm here because I want to raise awareness about teen suicide. The rate in our country is 3,000 teen suicide attempts a day. I think we can do better than that as a parent, as a community. So I'm looking for connections to get the books in the hands of teens. It's the makeitagreatdaybook.com is where the ebook is found, and that's why I'm here. I think we can do better. We're here to look for help to do that. Thank you.
Mrs. Simmons, would you please check with Sonia Figueroa Alberts in the back of our room in the beautiful red dress and get your information to her, please? She's in charge of pupil support services, mental health issues, and please feel free to give her some information. She'll get it out.
Thank you.
Next up, Pat Gardner.
Hello, everyone. My name is Patricia Gardner, and I am the president of the Sarasota Classified Teachers Association. I received a copy of a letter Friday afternoon from Superintendent Bowden to, hope I get this right, Sprout Workplace Investigations, requesting that they include an investigation of the role SCTA played in the accusations made against him in the district. I'm here to say that we welcome being included in the investigation. I hate to see taxpayer money being wasted on the superintendent's paranoid-like issues. The money is better spent in the classroom helping the students. However, we otherwise welcome being included in the investigation. In fact, I am offering to take a lie detector test if Superintendent Bowden will take a lie detector test too. With that said, I will answer some of Superintendent Bowden's questions. How many times did SCTA meet with Ms. Bonner? Twice. We talked to her for the first time on May 20th, 5 weeks, that's 5 weeks after the initial complaints were made, and met for lunch on August 15th at Demetrio's, where the tables are a foot apart from each other and everybody sees you. Have we paid for Ms. Bonner's legal fees? No, not a dime. Did we tell Ms. Bonner how to disclose her accusations to Superintendent Bowden? No, we didn't even meet her until 5 weeks later. Did we give Ms. Bonner advice? Yes. Get a lawyer, get a lawyer, get a lawyer. Did I write Ms. Bonner's complaints? No. Did we advise Ms. Bonner to go to the sheriff? No. I believe someone in the school district's HR department did that. The community needs to ask how much money has been spent on lawsuits, investigations, and even collective bargaining since Todd Bowden became superintendent. I think they would be shocked. Thank you.
Larry Tasman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, that's okay. I got it. Thank you. Well, it's just me again. Thanks for letting me speak again. The reason I'm here is because you know why. At the end of the day, this week brought on an inordinate amount of phone calls from athletic directors, people that had grad nights booked with us saying that looks like they can't book with us. So we said, got to do what you got to do. So one of the teachers said, well, I reached out and I cannot find anybody. The closest people that I've found, instead of being $2,000 for grad night, were $3,000 for grad night. So let me get back onto my thing. Because I only have 3 minutes to address the safety issues of transporting our children in Sarasota, safety is only worth 3 minutes. Can you imagine that? I'd like to remind you that you guys hold the power, just not to sit here and request for Mr. Bowden to review this and then slip it under the table. You have the power to insist on an open committee meeting. Bring all the new transportation manager and some respected bus company owners and discuss how to remedy what has gone down. Last meeting, I was lucky enough to hear about Pineview and all the accolades. My daughter graduated Pineview. My other daughter was the first class at Lakeview School. I know you were just a kid at that time, but anyhow. So my wife and I have been in the community here for 30 years. We have supported many PTOs. Mr. Sprinkle, Mrs. Kingsley, oh, she's not here anymore. Oh, yes. They know we were nominated Partner of the Year for our businesses, okay? Miss Lori White, you remember Lori White? She was a predecessor to you. She and my wife worked on a program that got endorsed by the governor of the state, promoting safety and playgrounds and activities involving skating, which my wife was involved. Now that you have a small glimpse of who I am, I'd like to address that week after week you are presented with hard, true facts about driver fatigue, bus shortages, just to name a few. You all sit here and endorse a policy where 90% of the awardees are from hours away, and understand that you're okaying and endorsing these drivers to push exceeded hours of service. At the last meeting, you were given a handout about safety. That consists of drug and alcohol testing and all these other things. There's a clause in the contract that states the school board reserves the right to waive minor variations to specifications and informalities in bids. I am here in front of you to say that although Ellery refused to address that others and myself had brought to his attention, he has also been suspended by Mr. Bowden in the past for improper judgment calls and now is retired. It has been 15 years since we've all gotten together.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
John Flaherty.
Board members, John Flaherty for the record. Disappointing is a word I want to share with you about your performance as a board. Investigations of your school association of teachers by a private investigator. She just offered everything up for free. Why do we need to pay a private investigator? I came after reading the Herald Tribune today. I'm furious at your performance, every single one. I'm dismissing you, sir, because you're not an elected official. You guys got to go up for the vote. Ridiculous. Some of you aren't going up for the vote again. So you don't have to worry about it. You can retire in peace as winners. The prior chief operating officer, out of nowhere, from economic development czar with no responsibility at all to chief operating officer of the school district, horrible decision. The emails I read, disgusting. If I was in a workplace where those emails were shared around, I'd be furious. Make your toes curl. Make your toes curl. That's one that I remember most. But next month, next meeting, I'll be here with all the emails to remind you of them. make your toes curl. To a secretary, his own private secretary, he's gonna make her toes curl. You make my gut curl. Disgusting.
And that ends the hearing of citizens. Do we have any additions or corrections to our agenda, Dr. Bowden?
Yes, item 6, approval of the instructional classified personnel report. 2 addendums were added after the agenda was made available to the public. Also, after the agenda was made available to the public, we have 3 transportation agreements that were moved to the September 3rd. That's with the Girls Inc., Boys and Girls Club, and the Laurel Civic Association. They were pulled from the consent agenda.
And I'd like to move number 11 to new business.
Second. What's 11?
Do I need a motion? If one person wants to move something.
Not at a board meeting, one person can't move something. I mean, why did you not let anyone, what?
You told me that.
Here we go again, Eric. I mean, you cannot
speak?
abide by rules and regulations.
Can I speak?
In just a second, you
Okay.
can speak. So you want to move the item number 11 under contracts.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion. We have a motion and a second.
To move the item or to?
I think the chair could move the item off of consent to new business if she would like to.
You don't have to vote on that?
You don't have to vote.
I think the chair can do it. If
Yeah,
the chair chooses not to do it, then there could be a vote.
No, I'll move it. I'll move it. So let's go back to what we're doing right now, which is
got it.
voting for the consent agenda,
got it.
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
Move approval of the consent agenda with the changes as notified, as amended.
Second.
I want to mention briefly that Shirley Brown is with us on the phone. She is hospitalized, hopefully improving after some surgery. And Mrs. Brown, are you here?
I'm here, and I vote yes.
Okay. I think you can vote electronically. Are you prepared to do that?
I can't.
Okay. All right, then we'll take a voice vote. So, Mrs. Brown votes yes. Mrs. Zucker.
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Mrs. Ziegler.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So that is approval, and everyone voting in approval of that motion. Next up, we have moved to new business, item number 11. Would someone please make a motion?
I would move that the School Board of Sarasota County, Florida approve the fiscal contract as presented. Shirley, you want a second?
A second.
Mr. Robinson.
Yeah, I'm going to be voting against this. My main issue is that the last 2 audit reports of the YMCA have questions, have going concern issues. In fact, the latest one has a going concern about whether the Y is actually going to be operational within a year, and that was dated May 19th, 2019. And so I don't think that we should be entering into relationships with entities that may not be able, that aren't financially secure enough. So that's the reason why I'll be voting no.
I'm going to vote for this because Schoolhouse Link, which is the homeless coalition of students, of which we sometimes have in excess of 1,000 students in a school year, is part of the YMCA under Youth and Family Services, and that will be moved over under foster care. So I feel comfortable in voting yes on this motion. So I will be voting in approval and would suggest that others do the same. Mrs. Ziegler.
Thank you. This question's for Dr. Bowden, just because of and this is obviously the YMCA's fiscal deterioration, for lack of a better term, is relatively new. Is this something in the future we can reevaluate? I'm not familiar with how many other vendors or third parties would be able to facilitate this in the future, for example.
So the contract that you have in front of you is actually a reimbursement for services that have already been rendered. The funding source is recovery dollars that we received from Hurricane Irma. Whether or not the YMCA continues as a going concern is irrelevant to the fact that they've already provided these services.
Very good.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Zucker?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Nope.
Mrs. Ziegler?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so the motion carries 4-1. And that ends new business. Are there any additional announcements or things to discuss?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have a situation and a request of the board. As you are aware, you all received copies of 2 letters in the past couple of days that were to Ms. Vicki Sproat, who is the investigator who has been retained to investigate the allegations brought by Ms. Bonner. The first such letter was dated August 16th from the superintendent to Ms. Sproat requesting that her investigation be expanded to include the role of the Sarasota Classified Teachers Association in the accusations that have been made against him. The next day, August 17th, a letter was received by to Ms. Sproat from Sarah Blackwell, who is Ms. Bonner's attorney, stating, among other things, that Ms. Bonner is adding a claim of retaliation and hostile work environment against the school board and the superintendent as a result of the August 16th letter. I had the occasion to speak with Ms. Sproat this morning by phone. She has indicated to me that she is awaiting direction from the board as to whether her investigation should be expanded to include the discussion or the investigation as requested by the superintendent, as she believed that was beyond the scope of her original engagement, although clearly related to it. So we've got the request from the superintendent, then the follow-up from Ms. Blackwell saying she is adding, her words, adding a claim, so adding to her claims. So obviously, if the investigation is going to be expanded to some extent, it would include both of those as they're kind of the flip side, one of the other. But Ms. Sproat said she would wait to hear back from me after I got direction from the board with regard to what she should do with that. She did indicate she did not believe that it would greatly, although one never knows, she did not believe it would greatly expand the scope of what she's doing.
I got
So,
it. I got it.
if the board chooses to give me direction to pass on to her, I would be happy to receive it.
I would move.
Hold on one sec, please.
We could put a motion on the floor.
Okay,
and
go ahead and put the motion.
Then you discuss it. I would move to increase Mrs. Sprout's investigation fees. The dollars allocated for Mrs. Sprout's investigation.
Well, I believe it would be it would be to increase the scope of her investigation
Okay.
to include the
Yes.
matters raised by both the superintendent and by Ms. Blackwell in their August 16 and 17 letters, respectively.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Mrs. Brown?
Yes, you know what, I support this. Well, for one, I mean, it's not like any employee talking to the union. You know, she not only is not a union member, but because of her position, she has confidential information, and she's not supposed to be. And it's just also the timing of it. You know that she hadn't filed a complaint with the district. She gave a verbal one, and we were asking for a formal complaint. And she meets with the union, and then turns around, and all of a sudden it's all over the paper, and I think there's somebody else's named in. I mean, I think we need to look at it to see, because I think one of the things that we are looking at is the time frame, and I think this will facilitate that time frame, because why wasn't a complaint filed with us, and what happened to make her file the complaint. So I think it's an important thing, and also, whether other things, because she is, with the confidential position that she's in, I mean, it's not like any employee. It's a confidential position that she was in. I think we need to look at that. But more importantly, we need to be looking at, was there something that was said and done in these things that pushed her to take those actions?
Thank you. Mrs. Ziegler.
So I want to peel this back a little bit because my mic's not on, so I'll start again. I want to peel this back a little bit because some of the things that even Ms. Brown mentioned there are a lot of assumptions because there has been a lot of stuff reported. So I want to go back to, and this question would be of the attorney, because I don't have the complaints in front of me. The two complaints that Mrs. Sproat is currently investigating was the complainant sexually harassed, which would be under the superintendent's jurisdiction, as he noted in his letter, and two, did the superintendent and named employee follow board policy as it pertains to the complaint? Am I missing anything else?
I think that's correct. The initial complaint of sexual harassment and then the process that was followed in response to that initial complaint.
Thank you. So something was said is, listen, I support outside independent investigations when needed because I think that they provide an opportunity for an objective review, because clearly there's so much emotion, there's a lot of division, even on the board or in the public. So it is an opportunity to have someone independent review the facts to find the answers of those two questions. The other part is it's not a legal investigation, so we don't have deposition. Is that right? No. Yeah, subpoena power is what the word I was trying to look for. Correct. So there isn't there's no power to, outside of the internal organization, to request outside investigations on an outside body. So for clarification, are you adding the scope to investigate the claimant? You made the motion.
I made the motion. I'm adding the scope to include Dr. Bowden's recommendation to the investigator.
So for clarification, can you clarify, since, like I said, a third-party organization, we do not have jurisdiction over to investigate. Certainly, there are people in an investigation that will be witnesses, and if they aren't a part of this, if they're not a school employee, I would argue that they don't have to, but certainly we've seen in past investigations, people come forward. But to add a scope, I want to be clear, we ask Vicki Sproat to investigate an outside entity and the claimant, or just the claimant, who I believe is the only person we would have jurisdiction to, investigate?
My request is specific to investigate the interaction between the two entities.
Okay, and I guess, again, the purpose to answer the underlying two questions, I just get concerned about spending additional dollars. And like I said, I realize that there is a need sometimes, as we've seen over the course of some years, for independent investigations, and it does cost money. There is a cost of doing business. But let's not be, I would say, frivolous with it. This is taxpayer dollars. How many teachers would it take to get to the, as we add this and add the scope to the investigation? I don't believe, and I have limited information certainly, but I don't believe that would necessarily answer those two questions. So, and like I said, the jurisdiction's questionable to me. I think really would be that you're expanding the scope to include the claimant's interactions with a third-party organization. It's fair enough. So I will not support this, but I hope my fellow board members will see the concern that I have, but also I believe that the community would have. And in the event, at the conclusion of this particular investigation, something comes out where you feel as though it would be appropriate to further investigate the complainant because of kind of what is alleged here, perhaps that's a second step, but I think it's premature and don't support it at all.
Mr. Robinson.
Stole a lot of my thunder, but I try to say it again, but in a different way. The two issues we're looking at is, to paraphrase Ms. Ziegler, was Ms. Bonner sexually harassed, and who knew what when? And the question is, first of all, Ms. Gardner's already answered every single question. So I don't know, and you don't have subpoena power, so even if you thought she was lying then, one has to reasonably think she's gonna say the same thing when we pay an investigator to investigate her, if she talks to that person at all. But it is very chilling that it's kind of reminiscent of what happened to Drew Peters, where we're sending people out to private citizens, and now we're out investigating private entities that we don't have no control over. The initial investigation didn't include one of the board members who was involved, because this body has no authority to investigate that board member. So we didn't include that board member in here. We have no authority to investigate an outside entity. And let's for the sake of argument say, what are you going to do if you find out the information? So what? So let's for the sake of argument say, no offense, Ms. Gardner. Let's say Ms. Gardner lied. Let's say Ms. Gardner paid for the lawyer. Let's say Ms. Gardner paid for a psychologist. Let's say Ms. Gardner actually paid for the podium that Ms. Bonner used when she made her announcement that she had been sexually harassed. What does that matter? The question is, was she sexually harassed, and who knew what when? And what this is this causes a chilling effect to Ms. Bonner. So, again, we'll have an investigation. I know, basically, a couple weeks ago, you told us not to make presuppositions about, what the investigation's going to say. But I kind of think that's what you're doing. You're essentially saying Ms. Bonner lied. And why did she lie? Did she lie because the union forced her to lie? So that's a supposition. I think you should wait till after the investigation is done to determine whether those things happened or not. But this is going to have a chilling impact. First of all, yes, Ms. Bonner is a confidential employee, but there is nobody with the sound of my voice that believes that Ms. Bonner was there meeting with them, talking about union pay raises, the contract language. Nobody believes that was the purpose of the meeting, and I don't believe that you do either, Dr. Bowden, because in your list of items you were questioning, none of them had to do with quote-unquote confidential information. They all had to do with the investigation. So it's reasonable to assume that nobody believed that they were there talking about confidential information. Rather, she was in there talking about the harassment lawsuit. So if we go with the supposition of don't make assumptions about what was actually in the investigation. So I'm not going to assume whether she was actually sexually harassed. I'm not going to assume whether who knew what when. But I think we can all pretty much assume that Ms. Bonner felt that she was sexually harassed, or that's why she filed the complaint. We can also assume that she tried to do things and nobody listened. That's a reasonable assumption on everybody's part, that she felt that she was powerless. She tried to go through the proper channels and nothing happened. And she even went to the police she tried everything she could. And so for her to go out and ask for help, I think that Ms. Bonner has the right to go to ABC 7, I'm only saying that because they're the only ones here. She has the right to go on the courthouse steps. She has the right to ask anybody in this room for help. If she believes that the system has failed her, and she tried everything she could, going to board members, going to the superintendent, if she going to the police, if she believes that she took every step that she needed to do, I don't have a problem with her going to anybody else that she thought she could be helped. I feel bad for her. If, regardless of whether what actually happened or not, just think about it if you were her, that she had to go back to that work site and work there every single day. And what's happening now is if we investigate this, we are now sending the message that people don't go to lunch with her. Don't be seen with Ms. Bonner, because you may be subject to investigation. Don't go talk to her. You're isolating her, which is the textbook definition of retaliation. And if we continue this investigation, we are going to open ourselves up to what Ms. Blackwell is accusing us of. We're going to fall into the trap of doing exactly what Ms. Blackwell is accusing us of, which is not only is this going to cause us additional costs for investigation, which I don't know why we're going to have to. Ms. Gardner answered every single question. The only thing I can think of, the only reason why we would continue on with the investigation after you have every single question answered is if you have a personal grudge against the Teachers Association, or if you want to isolate and retaliate against Bonner. There's no other logical explanation why you would do that since you have the answers to all your questions. I think this has become a chilling impact on anybody else who comes forward. If somebody else is sexually harassed in Sarasota County schools, I think the message is getting out. Don't say anything. Don't seek out help. Just bite your tongue and sit there. What would be even worse is that there's now a path that you can actually sexually harass a confidential employee, and if the system fails them, there's no avenue for them to use. That is such a chilling impact on anybody else who comes forward, anybody else who's felt to be sexually harassed. We should create a system that's as opening as welcome for the process, to make it so that people feel that their voices are heard and that there's a process to investigate the validity of all their claims. And to do this to Ms. Reyna, to turn the victim. Ms. Reyna is the victim in this situation. Make no mistake. SCTA isn't the victim. Todd Bowden, you're not the victim. Jeff Maltzby's not the victim. Ms. Reyna is the victim in this situation. And to turn this all around and make the victim the person who's being investigated now is turning. We're going back to 1970s now. I think that we need to do everything we can to protect Ms. Reyna in this situation and not make her actions under investigation. And now we're making her the what's the criminal person. Now we're make it sound like you did something wrong because you sought help and assistance. And apparently she didn't even sought help and assistance. All she did was go to lunch with somebody. So you're going to tell everybody, don't go hang out with Ms. Reyna, don't hang out with Ms. Bonner, and that's going to be a terrible effect on Ms. Bonner. And I feel really bad for you, Ms. Bonner, if you're watching. I can't imagine with the Constitution you must have to go through this, have your name dragged in the newspaper, walk around the landings, and everybody knows, don't talk to her, don't go near her, don't, we got to shun her, because if not, you could be in trouble. People are watching you. People are going to go back and tell on you. This sends completely the wrong message. And Ms. Bonner, I'll take you to lunch, Ms. Bonner. I'll be seen to lunch with you. I have no problem about that. Make me the bad guy. But I think this is such a chilling precedent that we're gonna set against this poor lady.
Turn it up.
Time that complaint was filed with the district, and if in fact she went to the union and the union told her to go to a lawyer, why didn't the union tell her to file a complaint? I understand that she was asked to file the complaint, and there's different tracks that we should take in our process and our policies, that if somebody gives a verbal one, we put a written thing in the file, and we have it there. But we are supposed to have a written complaint to take action. So it's a lot about, we're talking about who knew what when was the complaint filed, and when did some action get taken. That is what we were looking at. And I think that discussion that was had something to do with the timing of the complaint being filed. Again, that is what we need to look at, the time frame, what happened in the time frame. And we're not saying that Ms. Bonner can't have lunch with anyone. Everybody knows that it's different with the union because it is in her contract that she's not a member of the union. She's exempt from that because of the type of information that she might have, and we, I mean, it's no secret that the union wants to get rid of Dr. Bowden and continues to call him, a sex offender, even though he was cleared in all of the previous investigations. And so I think it's, contingent. I mean, we should know. Did they encourage her to file when she wouldn't file, when Dr. Bowden asked her to fill out the form? I mean, that's kind of what it is. Nobody is saying that Ms. Bonner lied. Nobody is saying that. We believe this. And nobody is saying that those emails that were sent were in the right line of duty. Nobody is saying that. But because of the thing that was filed, and we want to know the process. We want to know the timeline, and this is part of the timeline. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at the timeline. And did that meeting cause her to take an action? That's what we're looking at.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown. Mrs. Zucker.
Yes. I was the one who prompted Ms. Bonner to talk to Dr. Bowden and to bring this complaint forward. And why I'm in favor of allowing for this extra funding is because the way the information was given to Dr. Bowden was in piecemeal. And as a result, there are a lot of questions now as to whether or not Dr. Bowden made appropriate time made that commitment, made that. No, what do you make? The way Dr. Bowden took care of it. So I think it's very important that we know, based on what the timeline which Mrs. Brown was talking about.
Mr. Hardy.
Of course, the board can talk as much as the board chooses to talk. I would suggest at this point, representing the board, that the issue has been framed, the motion is on the table, and I'm not sure that anyone's doing anybody, particularly my client, the board, any good by continuing to discuss the issue or in any way to prejudge impliedly or expressly what we're going to get when the investigation is concluded.
I agree, and I hadn't gotten a word in because I didn't want to be accused of not allowing anyone else to speak first. Mr. Robinson?
Yeah, go ahead.
But I would say that I think we call the motion and vote. Mrs. Brown? Mrs. Zucker?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
I don't got to speak twice. No.
Mrs. Ziegler?
An emphatic no.
And I vote yes. The vote carries 3-2.
I will pass that along to Ms. Sproat tomorrow.
That was the motion to call the question, right? Or was that the motion?
No.
I thought that was the motion.
That was the motion.
On the motion.
That was the motion.
Well, she didn't close debate. Okay.
Are there any other discussions aside from this issue?
I would just like to say I watched the meeting. I couldn't get it on my computer, but I did it at YouTube on my phone and wasn't able to call in. But I thought the workshop that y'all had this morning was very informative, and talking about the insurance and the changes we're going to do at Emma Booker and all of the work that is being done and has been done at Oak Park. There's been so many negative things said about Oak Park. I think this shows all of the things that we are working for, because I know I got a lot of letters from parents and teachers, and I know that Dr. Bowden was out there on Meet the Teacher Day and offered to meet with any teachers that wanted to talk to him and offered to meet with any parents that wanted to, and he did talk to them. And I think this clears up a lot of questions that were out there. It shows that, we do a tremendous job, but yes, we need some more training, and but we just need to be more positive in what we're saying and what we're doing, because it's a very special school, and the teachers and the staff that are there do a wonderful job. And, they deserve, applause from us, not ridicule. And we just need to continue to work for these kids. I mean, they're special, and we're renowned for what we do for these kids. And the parents mostly are very happy and thankful for what we're doing out there. And I look forward to, we ran out of time on the mental health part, look forward to hearing more on that in September, and I will be there in September.
Mrs. Ziegler.
Hopefully walking on my own 2 feet.
Yes. Mrs. Ziegler.
I wanted to congratulate Sarasota High School for, well, 2 things. Closing School Avenue, I know we addressed it, the workshop, and thank you, Mr. Hardy, for your hard work, and all staff. I know Mr. Dumas, and I know Dr. Bowden. I mean, it's been a big heavy lift, and it's very successful to see that moving forward, but also for your new magnet program that was included into our consent agenda. We did discuss it at the workshop today, and I'm very excited. I think it's going to be amazing, so kudos to you guys. Great work.
If there isn't any other discussion, I just want to say again, the week before school started, we had wonderful professional development and programs that were done. Among them was a great day that Sonia and her staff in Pupil Support Services put on that we attended. There were some great things and some great happenings that were being taken on. So for all of the cabinet and staff that were involved, a great big thank you. Thank you to our teachers who have come back energized, and to our students who have come back. And I think our enrollment will be up this year. It appears to be that way. The next monthly board meeting will be Tuesday, September the 3rd at 6:30. We're adjourned.